This is Dale Maharidge. Today's show is about the New Timer. Bruce Springsteen had a song called The New Timer on his Ghost of Tom Joad release, which he credits being inspired by our first book, Journey to Nowhere. And there's one very identifiable character in this song, Frank. Bruce's character, Frank, is murdered, just like No Thumbs. Today I'm going to tell you about Sam. There's no character in this song that directly ties to Sam. The New Timer obliquely it's an amalgam of many characters, including us. Listen to the song, I won't go into it here, but there's little echoes of Michael and me, echoes of other characters. But let's go back and look at Sam and how we met Sam. We walked into the Salvation Army in St. Louis. This happened right after we left the bridge in Memphis. So we're hanging out, and in walks this man carrying a racquetball racket and an Adidas bag. He did not belong. He clearly was a New Timer. Now I'm going to try to tell the story of Sam here in its entirety. It would take 20 minutes. Short version is the previous week he tried to kill himself. So the next day he went to sell his blood plasma. He got $7. He had 58 cents in his pocket when we met him. He'd been homeless for 2 days. That previous night we'd taken him out to dinner. And he looked at us and said, I want to be like a beached whale. I don't want anybody seeing me this way. He'd lost his business. He had 3 children. He was 28 years old. Here's a piece of a letter I wrote to my editor in New York City about Sam. The full version's on Facebook if you want to look at that. So Sam told us that he wanted to head west and look for work. He was thinking about Denver. He was thinking about jumping on a freight train. He said, you guys know anything about that? We said, yeah, a little bit. So that day we went and checked out the Missouri Pacific Yard. We couldn't find any hobos who could tell us the lay of the land. So Michael had this idea. He said, hey, let's go up in the St. Louis Arch, which is nearby, and take a look at the yard. And it provided an amazing view of the yard. We could see where the trains were being built, where they were heading out.
This is Michael Williamson. Sam presented one of the biggest problems that I would face with others, but I had to deal with him early on, and that's that he was very embarrassed and ashamed and scared about what was happening to him, and he was more than willing to tell the story because, like a lot of people, he wanted to make sure that we knew and the world knew that it wasn't some stupid decision he made. He was just caught up. And he ended up being sort of our man that spoke for a lot of people. We would have been beyond heartbroken if we couldn't have gotten his story, because he wasn't a bum, he wasn't transient, wasn't a wino, wasn't mentally ill. He was just a guy who fell on hard times and was using the trains to get around and to seek hope, go west.
Long story short, here we are on top of a freight train. This picture was taken on top of a car carrier. You can see the St. Louis Gateway Arch in the background. We rode through the Ozark Mountain night. It rained. It came in on us. We had zero sleep. We were freezing. Here I am the next morning, desperately trying to nap, not successfully, near the yard. Not far away was a sign that told us all the places you could go from here. The night before, we'd run into a Union Pacific Railroad railroad cop, who was nice. He told us, watch the MOPAC, the Missouri Pacific Yard. That bull's throwing everybody in jail. We had to catch out of that MOPAC yard to head west. We had no choice. This was a hot, hot yard. We had to figure it out. We just couldn't try to jump on a train. So we saw this abandoned grain elevator. We went to check it out, and it looked like there was no way in, but then we saw this hole chiseled at the base. We could barely squeeze our bodies through. There was an interior ladder that led to a level way up high, a few stories up. So we couldn't get the packs through that little tiny hole, but I used a wire cable to pull them up. Here I'm hoisting the packs up into what's going to be our lair as we figure out how to get out of this yard without going to jail. All of us were exhausted. Sam was especially trashed. We were freezing, so Michael and I went out to get some firewood. It was so miserably cold. Just look at our faces. You get the idea. Once we got the fire going, it started warming up. We didn't have much food left. So Michael and I went out on a reconnaissance run to look for a store. We couldn't find anything. But we were warm. Those guys were asleep. Here I am in my t-shirt, just happy to be near the fire. So the next day we scoped out the yard. You can see where we were living in this picture and where the bull was. He seemed to drive on this side of the train. We might have a chance from the other side. Eventually, we did catch out. It's a long story. I tell it in the new book. It was hairy, but we made it. We were on this train 19 hours across Kansas, partly in a snowstorm, no food. We got into Pueblo, Colorado at dawn. Been about a day since we'd eaten. We saw a McDonald's in the distance. We bought 9 big breakfasts. We had 3 each. Then we went to the freeway to go hitchhike, but we were so tired we all fell asleep at the side of the freeway. When we woke up, I put my thumb out. Our first ride was from Native Americans. We made it to Denver eventually. Right away, Sam started looking for work, and it was bad. It was worse than St. Louis. There were, literally, we saw hundreds of people just like Sam in Denver who were there to look for work. Sam got really bummed out. He was depressed. We were freaked out. We just couldn't leave him. Now, Michael had won $500 from Nikon cameras. There was a contest, and his hobo photos from the previous year had won. Now, we were short on money ourselves. Michael was getting past due notices on his credit card. We had that $7,500 advance, but as I said, that didn't even cover our mortgages. We were spending our own money on this project. So Michael took half of that prize money, and he got Sam a hotel room for 1 month. Now later, we came back, saw Sam, and he'd gotten a job in a hotel. He was one of the few hopeful stories from all the people we had met in our travels. So the 3 of us, we joked, man, we've been through some stuff. Someday we're going to get back together and we're going to tell some stories. Boy, we'll have some memories to share. Kind of like going through a war together, you know? In 2009, we went to look for Sam. And I won't even get into that story here. It's in the new book. Let's just say Sam still haunts us. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, Sam did become a symbol for the typical unemployed man who had a job and whose prospects were quite bleak. And we saw, the sort of roller coaster ride of some days were great. He loved that he was getting out of town. He was going west. He was hopeful. Other days, it's just we were cold. I broke the peanut butter jar, story I told earlier, and looking for work, feeling that there's no hope. He'd lost his family. He had these sad little pictures of his kids with him. Just heartbreaking. We still feel that there's 14 million people out there that can tell Sam's story themselves. A much broader representation of the American worker now, not just blue-collar guys. But he's a really important part, and we really hope he's doing well.
Here's some lyrics from Bruce's song, New Timer, about rolling through Kansas. Well, in the song, he's rolling through Texas, the character, but I think of us rolling through Kansas, and I remember one time I peeked out through a crack in the car carrier and I saw the house with the woman in it. Bruce didn't know that. That wasn't in the first book. It's like he read my mind. And I saw that woman and I just felt so small, so alone. And I turned back and I looked at Sam and I felt like a jerk because I in the end I'd have a job to go back to. I'd have my life to go back to. What the hell was going to happen to Sam? When I hear Bruce's song, I think of that moment in the desperation that I felt for Sam and a lot of people in America. So Michael's out there right now as I'm finishing up this show, documenting people. And it's a story that continues. It's been going on for 30 years, and I don't think it's going to end very soon.